A 3,000-year-old gold bracelet belonging to an ancient Egyptian pharaoh has been stolen and melted down, officials said Thursday. The announcement came just weeks before the scheduled opening of a new museum showcasing ancient Egyptian treasures. The Antiquities and Tourism Ministry had announced earlier this month the disappearance of the bracelet, which belonged to King Amenemop of the Third Intermediate Period, who ruled Egypt around 1000 BC. The piece, decorated with spherical lapis lazuli beads, vanished from a safe in a conservation laboratory on September 9th. Officials said at the time they suspected an inside job. An Interior Ministry statement said Thursday that a specialized committee was formed to review artifacts in the laboratory, and images of the missing bracelet were circulated to antiquities units at Egypt's airports, seaports, and land border crossings. This was done out of fear that the bracelet would be smuggled abroad, but it turned out that the bracelet had been taken by someone working at the museum. The ministry said it tracked down the theft to a 52-year-old museum restoration specialist, who took the artifact. The silver trader, identified only as Mahmoud, then sold the bracelet to a 48-year-old owner of a workshop in Cairo's historic jewelry district for £100,000. The workshop owner, identified only as Hassan, later sold the bracelet to a 60-year-old gold smelter who recast the metal with other items. It wasn't immediately clear where in the process the bracelet was melted down. The ministry said suspects were arrested along with the proceeds from the sale, valued at about 194,000 Egyptian pounds for $1,000. It did not elaborate. There was no immediate comment from the Tourism and Antiquities Ministry. Amenhotep III, who ruled from about 1390 to 1353 BC, was the last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty and is considered one of the wealthiest rulers in history. His reign saw significant expansion of trade and cultural exchange with other civilizations. His son, King Tut, who took the throne when he was 9 or 10 years old and died at the age of 19, is one of the most famous Egyptian pharaohs. Tutankhamun's almost perfectly preserved tomb was discovered by British archaeologist Howard Carter in the Valley of the Kings near Luxor in 1922. It was the only royal tomb discovered intact, filled with treasures including a solid gold funerary mask that became one of the most iconic artifacts from ancient Egypt. The theft of the pharaoh's bracelet was the second reported in less than 2 years. In November 2021, a priceless amulet containing a fragment of the True Cross was stolen from a church in Old Cairo. The relic was part of a collection of rare biblical artifacts that had been displayed at the church for nearly a century. Egypt has suffered several high-profile thefts and acts of vandalism targeting its antiquities. In recent years, in 2014, 3 men were sentenced to 10 years in prison for stealing and smuggling artifacts from the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, including pieces from both Tutankhamun and the much-looted tomb of the boy pharaoh's great-grandfather, King Akhenaten. Also in 2014, a gang stole 11 pieces from the National Museum in Alexandria, including Roman-era statues, coins, and jewelry. In 2011, during the height of the uprising against longtime ruler Hosni Mubarak, visitors at the British Museum in Cairo removed a pharaoh's funerary mask from display and smashed it on the floor. In that case, 2 men were sentenced to 6 years in prison for their part in the theft and destruction of the mask. The wave of thefts and the perception that authorities were not doing enough to protect the country's treasures prompted Egypt in 2016 to introduce tough new laws with punishments of up to 15 years in prison for looting or damaging antiquities. The new law also introduced stiff penalties for those who buy or sell stolen artifacts. Despite the measures, the incidents have continued, suggesting the black market for antiquities remains strong. Looters are believed to have broken into a tomb at Egypt's Saqqara necropolis south of Cairo in July, stealing a collection of sarcophagi and wooden coffins. The coffins date back to between 525 BC and 400 for BC from the late period, when Egypt was ruled by the 26th dynasty. The theft was discovered when workers arrived at the site to carry out restoration work and found that 7 of the coffins were missing. Authorities haven't recovered the stolen coffins, and there have been no arrests. The incidents come as Egypt prepares to open a new museum near the Giza pyramids in November, hoping to lure more tourists back to the country and boost its economy. Tourism contributes significantly to Egypt's foreign currency earnings, but numbers have dropped sharply since the 2011 uprising that toppled Mubarak. The new Grand Egyptian Museum is designed to be the world's largest museum, dedicated to ancient Egyptian artifacts. It will showcase some 100,000 pieces, including a trove of treasures from the tomb of the boy King Tutankhamun. Among the most anticipated items on display will be 50 of the king's funerary treasures, including his famed golden mask and the chariot he was buried with. Officials hope the museum will revive Egypt's image as a tourist hotspot and help prop up its struggling economy. Egypt's tourism sector was already battered by the COVID-19 pandemic when Russia invaded Ukraine in February, dealing a heavy blow to the country's vital tourism industry. Russia was once the biggest source of tourists in Egypt, particularly for its Red Sea resorts. But the war in Ukraine led Moscow to halt flights to the country, dealing a harsh financial blow to Egypt, which was still reeling from the impact of the pandemic.